Okay, welcome to a new episode of Nate's Corner, the show about anything and everything but MMA, which is reserved for Nate's MMA Corner. And so today I thought, why not do a fun episode going over my least favorite to favorite Scooter albums, all 19 full-length studio albums in order of 19th favorite to first favorite. And I'll go over a little bit of each album and why I have my take on that album. So there's a lot to go over, and let's get started. Oh, but before I do, for you American audiences watching, Scooter is a big German techno pop rock band from Germany, big in Europe and big in other parts of the world. And they've done a couple big shows in Chicago in the United States, but never really officially conquered America. They have fans in America, but yeah, they've sold like 30 to 40 million albums worldwide and been around for quite a long time, going on 30 years at this point. Anyway, so I'm going to rank my least favorite to favorite Scooter albums. Go over one by one, so let's get started. Okay, so my least favorite is The Age of Love. Now, this is their fourth full-length studio album, and it, you know, the big single off this was Fire, which is a great song, and then The Age of Love, which was the second single and the title track, is a great song. And then I would say She Said, Dancing in the Moonlight, Return of the Future are great songs. And oh, by the way, I rank albums from a scale of 1 to 10 or perfect 10 plus, which basically an album gets 1 point for every good track I like on there, and 5 out of 10 would be average or okay, you know, and then anything past that is like better than okay, like good to like really good. And I would say this is like a 6 or 7 out of 10. So this is still a great album. And yeah, if an album has 10 great tracks, then it gets a perfect 10. And if it has 11 or more great tracks, then I give it a perfect 10 plus. And basically it can't get any higher than a perfect 10 plus. So I would give this, yeah, like around the 6, 7 out of 10 range. And it's a good album still. I think the band was still trying to find their sound on this one. It's their fourth album, and it's the last studio album with the original lineup of H.P. Baxter, Rick J. Jordan, and Ferris Bueller. So anyways, great album still. Check it out. Then we have their debut album, And the Beat Goes On. I would say this is probably like in the 7 or 8 range out of 10. The 4 singles off this, Move Your Ass, Endless Summer, Hyper Hyper, Friends, were all great singles. Different Reality, Rhapsody in E, and Raven in Mexico were great tracks as well. And this is a pretty solid album for a debut album. And yeah, the first album in their lineup of a long catalog to go. And yeah, by the way, these are the remastered editions, so I'll be talking about that throughout some of the reviews. So in 2013, they did a digital remaster of all their first 15 studio albums, and they added a second or third CD with bonus tracks, you know, remixes, B-sides from that era. And this is a 3 CD set, really good. Then I would say their second studio album, Our Happy Hardcore, great album. Stuttgart, awesome, great. Great instrumental, Let Me Be Your Valentine, Our Happy Hardcore, awesome title track. This is a monster tune, love it. Experience, awesome track. Back in the UK was another single off this. Awesome. Crank It Up, which I believe was used in Bruno, the comedic character. Yeah, that was, Bruno's used some Scooter tracks in the past. And yeah, the cover of Billy Idol's Rebel Yell was on this album, and that's a really good cover. And Last Minute's great. So yeah, a lot of great tracks on this album, and I would say it's a good 7, 8 out of 10. And then I would say next would be No Time to Chill. Now this is their 5th full-length studio album, and this had Axel Kuhn replace Ferris Bueller, first one to do so, and it had the big hit How Much Is the Fish, and the singles Call Me Manana and I Was Made for Loving You, a Kiss cover, and We Are the Greatest, which was I Was Made for Loving You, We Are the Greatest was a double A-side single. And great tracks on here. Hands Up is probably my favorite track on here. That and How Much Is the Fish. And Don't Stop's awesome. Expecting More from Ratty's awesome. And yeah, good solid album. I would say this is like an 8 or 9 out of 10. Definitely good debut for Axel Kuhn on this album. Then we have Sheffield, which is, you know what, I would say it just barely beats out No Time to Chill. And I would say this album is about a 9 out of 10. You know, I would say, you know, I'm Your Pusher was the lead single off this, and that track just sort of, you know, HP said that, you know, he didn't really think much of the single, and I kind of agree. I mean, it's not a bad song, but for a lead single, I wouldn't say it's the greatest. But, you know, Space Cowboy's okay, and She's the Sun, awesome ballad. Down to the Bone, awesome. Summer Wine, great ballad. Dusty Vinyl, great instrumental. Don't Give Me the Funk, great odd time signature song on here. And Where Do We Go? Awesome instrumental. Yeah, I think that this album being the 3rd album with Axel Kuhn, I think Axel Kuhn definitely proved that he is definitely a force to be reckoned with in Scooter, and still not a bad album. Then we get into Scooter's 3rd full-length studio album, Wicked. And yeah, I would say this is a perfect 10 out of 10. I think it's their first perfect 10 full-length studio album. I'm Raving was a big single off this, and then Break It Up was the 2nd single off this, and that was a fairly popular single as well in Europe. And my favorite track on here is We Take You Higher, and also, Don't Let It Be Me. Great tracks on here. I think Scooter really found their sound on this album. And this is where you really saw the fruits of the labor that the band is putting in work, and they're getting better and better overall as a band. And they could one day be one of the greatest bands of all time in the history of mankind thus far. Yeah, this album really shows a lot of potential. Then we get into Back to the Heavyweight Jam. Again, I would say this is a perfect 10 out of 10. And this is the 2nd album with Axel Kuhn. Amazing album. This is from the second album, the 2nd chapter, what they call when they, you know, go through eras of the band. And yeah, Faster, Harder, Scooter was the lead single off this. After the Millennium was the 2nd single off this. And yeah, they only did 2 singles off this, but they're both great singles. I'll put you on the guest list. Probably my favorite track off this album, as well as Faster, Harder, Scooter. And The Learning Process. Great album. Then we get into the last with Axel Kuhn, the 4th and final studio album with Axel Kuhn in the lineup. We Bring the Noise. Great album. Another perfect 10 out of 10. And yeah, the title track, We Bring the Noise, Posse, the 1st single. Are You Okay? Or Are You Happy? Awesome track. I Shot the DJ, the 2nd single. Love Remedy, awesome. And Chinese Whispers, awesome track. Great album. Then we get into the Mind the Gap, would be my next favorite. And this had obviously the big single, you know, One Always Hardcore, and it had J-Frog on here. And this was the 2nd album with J-Frog, and yeah, amazing album. Again, perfect 10. The Chaser, awesome, and My Eyes Are Dry, awesome, awesome, reminiscent of 80s/90s industrial rock and roll. Killer Bees, great intro. Then we get into the 5th chapter, T5C. This is great, great, great album. And yeah, I would say Today, awesome. We Got the Sound, awesome. Today was a single. Radiate was a single. There's a lot of singles off this. Big Room Blitz, Can't Stop the Hardcore, great, great, great album. Chopstick was a great instrumental. And again, perfect 10 out of 10 or better. I would say it's perfect 10 plus. And then we get into Forever, which is their latest full-length studio album. It's a double album. And yeah, I would say this is a perfect 10 plus album. And great, great, great tracks on here. This was in their 2017 album. And yeah, the second disc is all instrumental tracks. And The House of House is bombing, just slamming. As Years Go By is my favorite track on disc 1. And My Gabber and Bora Bora and Rave We Trust were the singles off this. And oh, Wild and Wicked was an awesome track. Kiss Goodnight, awesome. Always Look on the Bright Side of Life definitely throws you off guard. Great, great ending track. Then we get into the Big Mashup, which is technically a double album. So this is a very experimental album. They really utilize a lot of dubstep on here. And again, I would say this is a perfect 10 plus album. And pretty much we're all getting into perfect 10 pluses in this at this point. A long time ago we got into perfect 10 or perfect 10 plus ratings as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, the first disc was 16 studio tracks, and the second disc initially was a huge long remix of medley of all their singles up to that point. And it was a nice mix, but this remastered edition, it has the singles and B-sides, or singles and remixes of some of the singles off this album on disc 2, and skips the medley disc. But yeah, 2011 album, and the box set came with a live concert DVD at Imtech Arena for the Stadium Techno Inferno show. And I'll do a future episode on other, you know, Scooter DVDs and live albums. But anyways, great album. Oh, and the only one is the lead single, and it's one of their best songs ever. Then we get into Ace. Ace, again, perfect 10 plus. And awesome, awesome album. Burn, awesome, with Vassy. Mary Got No Lamb. What You're Waiting For with Madewell. Stargazer, my favorite track off of it. Great album. This is their 2016 opus. Then we get into their Juggernaut, the one that was seen as reviving their career at this point, Jumping All Over the World. This was very industrial rock influence as far as I'm concerned. When you listen to it, especially when you listen to Marian version, that is a Sisters of Mercy cover, and this has a very industrial rock 90s Pretty Hate Machine vibe to it as far as I'm concerned. If you were to say take out The Question Is What Is the Question, you could easily close your eyes and picture this being a 90s industrial rock album. And yeah, they've definitely experimented over the years, and this is definitely a slamming album. And it was a big, big album of theirs. It went #1 in UK and beat Madonna, took out Madonna from the #1 spot. Then we have Under the Radar, Over the Top, which is their 2009 album. And it's a follow-up to Jumping All Over the World. This was popular, but not as popular as Jumping Over the World worldwide. T. Cento, awesome single. See Her Smile, love it. Second Skin, sounds great live. And yeah, I thought this was like the better. This was like the slightly superior sequel to Jumping All Over the World. Then we have The Ultimate Aural Orgasm, which is awesome. This is a very rock album, very industrial rock sounding album with Behind the Cow having that machine sound mixed with the guitars, and Does a Fish Have Chips, again having some roaring guitar riff in there. And Lost in Tanzan is a great dark, I guess you could say like dark wave track. It was the second single. Imaginary Battle has a roaring guitar riff on here, and a really cool techno dance beat thrown in the mix with a piano sound. It sounds amazing. Scarborough Affair, also awesome track. And Love is an Ocean, great ending instrumental track. Then we have Who's Got the Last Laugh Now, which is, you know, just one of the greatest albums of all time. Hello, Good to Be Back was the lead single off of it, one of the greatest music videos ever. And this was the last one with J-Frog in the lineup, studio album in the lineup. And Everlasting Love, great cover. Privileged to Witness, awesome. Rock Bottom, I mean, this whole album. Mesmerize, great ending track. Lights Out, great intro. Perfect 10 Plus, one of the greatest albums ever made in the history of mankind. And definitely listen to this one. It has some cool guitar work in there, some good techno beats and dance tracks and everything else in between. Then, okay, so a little surprise for the #1 spot. Throw a curveball at you guys. So I say this, it's actually a tie for the #1 spot. So it is Music for a Big Night Out and the Stadium Techno Experience. I just can't decide which one I like more. I think the Stadium Techno Experience, when I first heard it, I nearly cried thinking I just heard quite possibly the greatest album in the history of mankind thus far. And Weekend, phenomenal. Maria, I Like It Loud. The Night. Yeah, I know some of you love The Night. Swinging in the Jungle. Now, the remastered version has Swinging in the Jungle, but there's another track that takes place, like drawing a blank right now, but anyways, I'll probably remember it later. But yeah, it's similar to Swing in the Jungle that's on the non-remastered version. Level 1, awesome. Like Hypa said, awesome. Ignition, great intro. And yeah, easily one of the greatest albums in the history of mankind. Then Music for a Big Night Out had 4 AM as the lead single. I could not stop listening to that song and watching the music video when I first heard it and saw the video. Talk About Life, amazing. Too Much Silence, slamming. I mean slamming. With the Enya type vocals, with the roaring beats in there in the background and the echoey sound. Phenomenal. Army of Hardcore's second single. Awesome music video and awesome song. What Time Is Love, just roaring. I'm a Raver Baby, and yeah, so many. I Wish I Was, Black Betty, Last Hippie Standing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So I got it as a tie at #1. So there you have it. There are my least to favorite full-length studio Scooter albums. Stay tuned. I'll probably do a list of my favorite live Scooter albums and my least favorite to favorite Scooter compilation albums, as well as my least favorite to favorite Scooter DVD sets or DVDs. So there's going to be more Scooter stuff. They're my favorite band. I think they're one of the greatest bands in the history of mankind. And obviously they have a huge catalog to talk about, and it's hard to cover all of it in one day. So that wraps up my favorite full-length studio Scooter albums for the time, all 19 of them thus far. Their 20th album